My name is Jennifer Dizo, and I am a principal with the BTI Consulting Group, and I'm going to be leading today's webinar. In addition to talking with clients and legal decision makers, I get to spend a fair amount of time talking with attorneys. And I hear this all the time. We have well-meaning attorneys with their hearts truly in the right place, trying to be cognizant of clients' time, which is very admirable. Unfortunately, in these situations, clients aren't thinking in the same way that we do. In fact, BTI's research shows that more than half of legal decision makers point to communication as their biggest gripe that they have with law firms. You know, what I like to sort of say is clients are like our overprotective mothers. And, you know, the first time you take the car out and, of course, you're having such a good time, you end up missing curfew. And what is your mother doing? She's sitting at home imagining all of the worst possible scenarios that she can think of. Clients are a lot like that. When they don't hear from you, they are convinced something bad is happening. No news, always bad news. So we're going to learn how to communicate more effectively so our clients aren't left to their own imaginations when it comes to what we're doing for them. And we're also going to make sure that we're performing as well as we can so that we not only maintain our client relationships, but that we're building them out to their fullest potential. At the end of the day, the successful client communication requires only two things. You have to understand what it is that your client wants to hear, but you need to deliver the message in your style. Anything else is going to come off as formulaic, insincere. Quite frankly, it's going to be awkward. Okay, let's get into the building blocks of how we improve our communications. First thing we need to know is what the client wants to hear. It's three sort of mottos that I constantly repeat to myself when I'm checking out my own client communications. First, do I know what the client's preferences are? Second, am I getting to the point quickly? And third, am I speaking in the words that the client understands? One of the more interesting things, I think, in your job as an attorney, quite frankly, in my job as this research consultant, is that every single client that you deal with really is a unique snowflake. Everybody's got something different going on in their lives. And it's really interesting because when BTI does the client feedback initiatives for law firms, every now and then we'll have a law firm who asks us to include a question about, oh, can you ask, you know, when our clients want project updates, how frequently they want them. And their ultimate goal is they would love to build it into the system so that project updates are pushed to the client systematically. But of course, we include the question because our client asked us to, but the answers are always all over the place. This is why those cookie cutter approaches just don't work. You always have one client who, you know, it's the one who always wants to talk by phone. Don't email me. I don't read my emails. I want to talk by phone. You have other clients who say, don't call me. I never pick up the phone. Only email me. You have some clients who want weekly, daily updates. Then there's other clients who say, I want my update 1 hour before I'm walking in the door to my management meeting. So how do you manage this? Well, the only way to know what your client's preferences are, of course, is to talk to your client and ask them. Now, this can be a very casual conversation. Actually, what I personally do is when I send my first progress update to a client, at the very end, I'll say, hey, I'm going to be sending these every Friday. Is there anyone else I should include on this email? Would you like me to send it on a different day? And I sort of just include it into that first conversation. Alternatively, you could sit down and have a formal sort of project intake matter kickoff meeting where, amongst other things like discussing the scope and the approach, you talk about the client's communication preferences. Again, whatever going to work for you, whatever's going to work for the client, but have the conversation. It takes 5 minutes, and now you know that your actions are going to be aligned with what the client expects. So, in direct contrast to these unique preferences that each of our clients have, in my 10 years of conducting research with legal decision makers, I have yet to come across a client who has said that they wish their attorneys would write longer and more detailed communications. Please have a longer meeting and tell me more information. Attorneys like to put a premium on what it is that they know, and I don't mean to single you out because, let's face it, research consultants also like to do the same thing, and I frequently find myself where I am subjecting clients to the death by tome approach of communication. And it isn't just in our written communications, it's obviously our spoken conversations as well. I'm sure you can all think of meetings that you've sat in where the same thing is said over and over again, maybe slightly differently, about 20 times. Complete waste of time. There's a skill to trimming down what we say, and it's time to really start practicing that skill. Now, again, this is not just attorneys. This is the entire business world. I found is there's this infatuation with wordiness, and I have to unfortunately probably take some blame for it because I'm sure some plucky consultant was preaching the importance of the idea of active listening, where you repeat back to the client what they said so that you make sure you truly understand what it is that the client wants. I think this is really misguided advice, frankly. In my 20 years of professional experience, and more pointedly, I think in my 40 years of personal relationships, what I have found and come to the conclusion is that active listening mostly makes you look like an idiot. When you use active listening, particularly on a client, by parroting or paraphrasing what they've told you, what happens is the client actually tunes you out. They presume that they are not going to hear anything new or anything interesting from you. Now, don't get me wrong. Confirming that you understand what the client has told you is very important, but you always have to bring something new to that conversation. There's hundreds of ways to do this. One of the things that I like to do in order to enact this is I tend to take control of the meeting wrap-up, where I will outline everything that sort of was said, but also put in the timeline. So, a sample sentence, I guess, would be, okay, well, based on everything that I've just heard, you can expect me to deliver this deliverable on this date while you're finishing up this other task. It's to the point, it sort of quickly summarizes what you said, but it also puts the next steps in place. You're bringing something new, you're setting their expectations. Okay, and the last pillar in these foundations of communications is one that I know is not going to surprise many of you, but I do have to say it because it does remain one of the top gripes that we hear about from legal decision makers about their attorneys. Tone down the legalese. Doesn't matter if your client is a counsel also, especially if they're a business leader. Doesn't matter who you're talking to. Nobody is interested in hearing a recitation of the law. Attorneys are not hired because they know the law. I'll say that again. Attorneys are not hired because they know the law. Attorneys are hired because they know how to apply the law to their client's situation. And that's all clients want to hear. So every conversation, every communication that you have with a client should pass a sniff test. I usually ask myself 3 things. First, did I tell the client why it matters to their business? If it doesn't relate to them, I'm simply waxing poetic. Did I communicate my information in a way that makes it easy for the client to tell somebody else what I told them? And of course, I'm talking specifically about who they're reporting to. Can they tell the CEO? Can they tell the board of directors what it is that I've told them? And again, those individuals probably don't speak legal terms as fluently as we all do. Then the third question that I ask is, does the client know, without a shadow of a doubt, what it is that I'm recommending they do? This is a big one that comes up a lot in our research, that clients want recommendations. They want your guidance. They want your advice. Again, it's why they hired you. They don't want you to simply give them a drop-down menu choice of the options available to them. They want to know what you recommend. If you can answer yes to these sort of 3 sniff test questions, you've already separated yourself from, I don't know, about 85% of other attorneys. The big crucial thing that you're doing when you do this is you take that all-important step away from being a generic legal provider, and you've stepped towards trusted partner. With that, I do want to thank everyone again today for joining me. I do welcome you to reach out to me directly, and my number and my email are on the screen. Feel free to reach out to me if you have specific questions.